You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
Want to shop Walmart Black Friday deals first? Walmart Plus members get early access to our hottest deals. Join now and get 50% off a one-year annual membership. Shop Black Friday deals first with Walmart Plus. See terms at walmartplus.com.
Hello, this is Kate Lister from Betwixt the Sheets, and you are listening to Queen's Podcast. Katie and Nathan have asked me to jump in here to let you know that they do use explicit language on this show. And if that's not for you, if you're of a sensitive disposition, consider this your warning to get out now while you still can. And don't be listening and then writing anybody angry letters, because fair dues, we did tell you. But if you do like offensive material and if you do like to be shocked, then why don't you head over to our show as well and listen to Betwixt the Sheets, the history of sex, scandal and society, for all things historically smutty.
Hi, this is Katie.
And this is Nathan.
And you're listening to Queen's Podcast, the show about women in history. Nathan.
Katie and Queen's Podcast supporters, we're back for Elizabeth Taylor Part 2.
We are back. Yeah, I am excited to get back into the life of Elizabeth Taylor. And honestly, we have so much shit to cover.
So much.
Just to do a small recap so we can jump off where we left off. Elizabeth Taylor was a woman with a lot of life, and we don't want to waste any time. So Nathan, where did we leave her?
Well, we left her when she was 19 years old and just coming off of a horrible marriage with Icky Nicky Hilton. But silver lining, she's now a grown-up with her own money and her own choices, which also means she's choosing more grown-up roles in movies now. She's no longer riding a little horse being the cute girl all the time.
Yeah, she's coming into her own as an actress.
Yes.
In 1951, she made a movie called Ivanhoe, which is like this historical epic drama. And while filming this movie, she acted alongside a guy named Michael Wilding. And he would become Mr. Elizabeth Taylor, too.
So we're not going to spend too much time on Michael Wilding. We got a lot of husbands to cover, honestly. And the only reason this marriage is important in this story is because he gave her two beautiful sons. Also, two beautiful, gorgeous engagement rings dripping in jewels like Wanza.
I mean, it was just one engagement ring, but it was big enough to be two. Click on that link. Look at the size of this thing.
What?
I couldn't find a picture of it in color. It's a sapphire.
You could knock somebody out with that.
That is a weapon.
Yeah.
How do you pick your hand up? Because I love sapphires. So I love this. Princess Diana's ring famously was a sapphire. But this is so much bigger. This is like move over.
Yeah.
Royalty.
If she backhanded somebody, she might give them a concussion.
She might take their eye out.
Yeah.
That's gorgeous. And I will be posting pictures of all the jewelry that we talk about on Instagram. But that ring is gorgeous.
She married Michael Wilding when she was 20 years old, and he was 40.
Don't love it.
Ew. It doesn't seem like there was any major issue that caused the end of their marriage. Her star's just on the rise. His star is not.
Yeah.
It's falling. It's a falling star. When their second kid was born, things just kind of fizzled out.
Yeah.
They had what Elizabeth described as a quote-unquote friendly divorce, and they co-parented their kids, did that whole thing. So it was not messy.
Yeah, it seemed to be civil. It doesn't seem like anybody cheated on anybody when they decided to break up.
Not any foreshadowing in what Katie just said.
No. This is the only non-drama when it comes to divorces in this story, or at least this episode. But I think it just had to do, and she had this same issue with her first husband. He hated being called Mr. Elizabeth Taylor. And I think Michael Wilding really struggled with watching his wife have success after success after success while his own career was kind of starting to stall.
So ye old jealous husband, essentially.
She needs a husband that's not going to be intimidated by her success.
On her same level, or somebody who's not going to be intimidated by a woman who's gonna just do that.
Yeah, totally. Well, then, you know what? You shouldn't have married Elizabeth Taylor. If you're intimidated by a powerful woman that's always going to be the center of attention, you shouldn't have married Elizabeth Taylor.
But don't worry, guys. Not all of her marriages and divorces are going to be so low drama.
Yeah.
Hang tight. Hang on to your tits. Because we're going to get back to her career before we talk into men.
Hang on to your tits? Is that a saying? Or is that just...
it is now.
It is now. Hang on to your tits, bitches. In 1956, Elizabeth Taylor starred in this movie called Giant. Have you ever seen this movie, or do you know about this movie, Nathan?
I know about it. I've never seen it because it's in the notes, but it's so long.
It's so long. It is 3.5 hours long. I watched it with my mom as a kid because my mom is obsessed with this movie. In fact, when I told my mom we were doing Elizabeth Taylor, she goes, "Oh, have you ever seen Giant?" And I was like, "Oh, yes, with you. Hello." I don't remember a lot of it. Yeah, I was like 15 when we watched it. But it was really, really important to Elizabeth Taylor's career.
Yeah, and it also dealt with some hot topic issues at the time. It did talk about like those hot button issues like racism, segregation, the patriarchy. We are here for it.
Yeah.
Things that Elizabeth had never given too much thought about before, but now was faced with having to think about these injustices in America. This movie was huge, and it was a huge success both critically and at the box office, and won the Academy Award for Best Director that year.
Yeah, it was also an important movie for her personal life because she made 2 new friends. So Rock Hudson.
Oh, sorry. Nathan might have a crush.
We talked about it in the first episode with how she formed this lifelong friendship with Montgomery Clift, who was an closeted gay man, because it's the 50s in Hollywood. Not if you wanted to be an actor, you're not going to be out there being like, I like men, you know, like that's just not happening.
Not going to work.
And Rock Hudson, I'm sure we'll talk about it in the part 3 of Elizabeth Taylor, but he was a closeted gay man. I just love that gay men all felt so comfortable with her, because this is another trend. It's like every closeted gay guy she meets, she becomes best friends with.
She's a Pisces. I know someone that's a Pisces that also likes gay men.
It is to the point. I will be in the room with like 200 people, and there will only be one gay man in the room, and within 20 seconds, we're best friends. It's just a gene that some women have. She became really good friends with Rock Hudson, and that friendship would last years and years and years. She also became really good friends with the other male lead, James Dean.
And James Dean and Rock Hudson hated each other. And Elizabeth took it upon herself to keep the peace on set between the two men who, they both adored her. So she's like, you have one thing in common, and that's me.
Yes, like she would literally go to Rock Hudson's trailer or whatever and listen to him. This kid, James Dean, thinks he knows everything about acting. This is only his 3rd movie. Who the fuck does he think he is? And she would just sit there and listen, and then she would immediately go to James Dean's trailer and listen to him be like, this old man thinks he can tell me what to do. And she would sit there and listen. And James Dean was probably also closeted gay.
I think there may have been a little drama there.
Yeah,
maybe a little drama to unpack.
But sadly, James Dean died before the movie was finished filming. His parts were pretty much done, but he loved to race cars, and he got in a really bad car accident and he died on the scene.
And Elizabeth's world is turned upside down.
I mean, have we really talked about anybody else in her life that she lost like that before?
No, like randomly.
Because she's only like 22 or 23.
Yeah,
she's really
and this
young.
is a car accident. I feel like this happens in... Most of us know someone from childhood who died in a car accident. It's one of those things that just impacts you, and it's just so random.
But she'd been very lucky that she hasn't lost anybody close to her up to this point.
But they still have a movie to film. And at this point...
Imagine.
I mean, this has happened before. The Crow was another one that it happened in where
somebody died and they still had to finish the movie.
Yeah. So it's emotionally taxing because you shared these moments and these scenes with somebody, and now you're going to the set and waiting for them to show up, and they don't.
If you died tomorrow, I don't think I would ever be able to record an episode of a podcast again.
And much less after you're done recording. There's like this thing that you do in Hollywood. It's like the wrap party. Like you have a big
and then go
party.
on like a press tour for it and have a grand opening.
And of course, on the press tour, they're all like, "So tell me about James Dean," and you're like, "Oh God, I don't want to talk about this." Like
that's fucking tough. And it was really hard for even Rock Hudson was like affected. I'm sure he was like, I really should have been nicer to that guy. Like, you know, like
whoops.
You probably have some kind of guilt.
Maybe I should have called him back that one time he wanted a booty call. Whoops.
Elizabeth Taylor did an interview in like the 80s or 90s, and she told the interviewer, "You cannot print this until after I die." And the reporter honored that and didn't print it until after she died. James Dean had admitted to Elizabeth Taylor that when he was a child, his pastor at his church molested him.
Poor guy.
That's how close they were. You don't just tell anybody that shit. You know, like that's how close they were.
Especially back then. Like that's not something you share.
But like back then, for you to confide in somebody like that, just to let you know like how close they were. What a tragedy. He died. He was so young.
That was only the good die young.
All right, Billy Joel.
Despite the loss of one of its stars, this movie was a huge hit and a boost to Elizabeth's career. And as for her personal life, though she and Michael Wilding were separated, she didn't really have men on her mind at this moment. But there was a man that had her on his mind.
Mike Todd has entered the chat.
Ooh, I think this may be somebody that had an impact on our girl.
I think so. So Nathan, introduce Mike Todd to the listeners of Queen's Podcast.
Mike Todd was a famous producer who was riding high off of his recent mega success around the movie Around the World in 80 Days. Mike Todd was an incredibly ambitious and sometimes successful businessman. He had met Elizabeth while he was still with her second husband, and he'd been in love with her since the first time he saw her.
I want to circle back to that sometimes successful thing, because this man had so many ups, so many downs, so many ups, so many downs, but he always kind of landed on top. And he is just, I think we all kind of know a person like that you're just sometimes like, how do you have so many ideas and so much energy? He always was like firing on all cylinders, always going. I wonder what his sign was.
Cancer.
Oh, that's surprising. I'd be interested to see his whole chart. Anyway, I saw this one quote by him that I loved. It was like, I haven't always been rich, but I've never been poor. I've been broke, but broke is temporary. Poor is a state of mind. And if you have a poor state of mind, you're never going to not be broke. And I was like, I love that.
Yeah. He's like the Holy Roman Emperor. It's a state of mind.
Yeah, it's a state of mind.
How did the Holy Roman Emperor make it his way into the story about Elizabeth Taylor?
Elizabeth Taylor.
I don't know. We're waiting on the Pope.
We'll get there. The Pope does come into this episode, actually. But no, I just thought that was important to just give you some kind of context on this guy's character. He is not a guy that gets knocked down easily. And so when he saw Elizabeth Taylor, he was like, oh, that woman is going to be my wife.
Yeah, so one day Elizabeth is at MGM Studios and she gets a note that the producer, Mike Todd, would like to have a meeting with her. And she's thinking, honestly, okay, he must have a movie that he wants me to be in. So imagine her surprise that when she walks into his office, he starts telling her all the reasons that she should marry him.
Okay, whatever that was, it worked on Elizabeth. I think she's attracted to confidence.
Yes.
And this guy had big dick energy. This guy was only 5'5". So don't come at me being like, women don't like short men. No, women don't like guys that exude unconfident. Be confident is what I'm saying. He had swagger. He had big clit energy. He had big dick energy.
He had both.
Elizabeth was into it. She was just like, because if he would have been like, I think I would like to take you out, she would probably be like, every man wants to take me out. But
What
when
kind
he's
of
just
accent was that? I think I'd like to take you out.
Yes. But no, she's like, whatever this confidence is, I am fucking into it. Mm-hmm. It worked for her. She knew he wasn't going to be fazed by somebody calling him Mr. Elizabeth Taylor. She knew, like, he was going to be like, fuck yeah, I am. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a compliment. Thank you.
That makes me think of, Rihanna and her partner A$AP Rocky. Mm-hmm. I've seen people be like, ooh, he's a cuck to Rihanna. And he's just like, sure.
This
Whatever.
is fine.
She's a billionaire. She's hot as fuck. Whatever. Sure.
Think what you want.
Yeah. And that's how Mike Todd felt.
Elizabeth would later say, my self-esteem, my image, everything soared under his exuberant loving care. And though this would be her third husband, it seems like it was the first time that she was truly in love.
Right. Because it kind of seems like with Icky Nicky, it kind of seemed like the studio wanted her to be married. And then her second marriage, I honestly just think, because Elizabeth Taylor will later say in Mitten Life that she only slept with men she married. So I think it was just kind of like her second one was like, well, we've slept together.
Might as well get married.
Yeah. Side note, he was 25 years older than her, which I don't love. Elizabeth was only like 25 at the time, but I'm not grossed out about it because she has had so much life at 25. I hate it when men are like, usually mature for your age. But she really, I don't think she acted or thought like a 25-year-old. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Am I making sense?
She was always attracted to older men. I couldn't imagine her with someone her own age because she's already established.
I'm not super bothered by this age difference.
I mean, it's not great.
It's not great. He had a kid that was older than her.
And it's still a little creep.
But they matched. Their energies matched each other. So, and everyone's adults. 25, your frontal lobe is developed.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Mike and Elizabeth had a whirlwind romance that could be a little tumultuous. When they fought. But when they made up, aka Bone Zone. Some people just like that kind of relationship. I feel like that kind of relationship borders on toxic, though.
Yes, I have never. That has never been my thing. I am not at all make a fight so you can make up type of thing.
Me neither.
But some people are. I don't know.
They like the challenge, I guess.
They like the drama. I don't know. But Elizabeth wound up pregnant pretty quick after meeting Mike. And both of them were through the roof. She wanted more children. So it was around this time, after she found out she was pregnant, that Mike Todd proposed to her with another ginormous engagement ring. So let's go back to the photos. Go to the second picture. So this is her after she has their baby on the cover of Life magazine, I think. Look at that ring.
Good Lord.
Well, first of all, her divorce from Michael Wilding wasn't official yet. So when she first got it, she called it her friendship ring. And then later, after they got married, she called it her ice skating rink.
You could do a triple axel on that thing. Oh my Lord. The two married in a lavish ceremony in Mexico, and Mike's best friend, Eddie Fisher, was the best man. And his wife, Debbie Reynolds, was her matron of honor. So just tuck those names in your back pockets.
Keep them back there. And just fun fact, in case you didn't know, and you are a Star Wars fan, Eddie Fisher and Debbie Reynolds are the parents of Carrie Fisher. Princess Leia.
Yes.
Now, Elizabeth is considering her life at this point. She has been working since she was 9 years old. Oof. She is now 25. She has been in 27 movies. That is more than one movie for every year of her life. She's tired.
Yeah.
She tells Mike, I don't think I want to work anymore.
I wouldn't either.
I got these 2 beautiful kids. I've got another one on the way. I don't need the money. You are like an idea machine. You're always making income. I want to stay at home and be a homemaker.
Whatever Elizabeth wants, Elizabeth gets. Mike.
Yep.
Probably.
Yeah.
And they lawyer up and they go to MGM and they start negotiating an end to her contract. Now, one thing you need to know about Mike Todd is that he was a master negotiator and a very, very savvy businessman.
Yes. So they come to an agreement. Elizabeth has one movie she's already signed up for, Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. Her contract was for 3 more years, but she didn't want, because like how her contract was right then, they could be like grinding movies out of her. They could be like, you are doing 8 more movies in this 3 years or whatever. But they negotiate it down to, and after Cat in a Hot Tin Roof, she will do 1 more movie in the 3 years that you have her. So that sounds reasonable.
Yeah.
And then she would finally be free, and she was going to retire or at least take a nice long break and just be a stay-at-home mom, because she has been with MGM since she was 11.
Yeah, that's more than more than her life. Like,
yeah, more than half. Absolutely, yeah.
6 months after their Mexico wedding, Elizabeth Taylor went into labor with her daughter and little girl that they named Liza. But the delivery was not that great. It was very hard on not only the baby, but Elizabeth as well. Baby almost nearly died. Yeah, almost.
They both
died.
Yeah. Elizabeth was given an emergency C-section. They said there was 9 doctors in there to deliver the baby. I don't even know. What? That's too many doctors. That's too.
9?
When Liza was born, they actually pronounced her stillborn. But luckily, one of the nurses was like, let's just try to resuscitate and see what happens. And they revived her. So
thank God.
Scary. Elizabeth Taylor was knocked out. It was not one of those C-sections where you stay awake. So she didn't know that her baby was pronounced stillborn at birth, thank God.
Yeah, and really frustrating side note that kind of factors into her being unconscious was she was under anesthesia, and one of the doctors told Mike, yo, if Elizabeth has another baby, if she gets pregnant again, she could die. So we need to tie her tubes. And Mike ends up agreeing to it. Ugh.
I hate that happened, but I don't think we should give Mike Todd too much shit for that. Because that's how things went then. And he was probably crawling out of his skin with anxiety.
Yeah.
And so if the doctor comes to him and is like, this is my medical opinion, I'm sure he was just like, yep, whatever is going to keep her safe. Yep.
But when Elizabeth came to and they told her what had been done, she was heartbroken because she wanted to have loads and loads of Taylor Todd babies. So it sucks that back in the 50s, they didn't have to ask a woman what they wanted for her own health. Her husband could just make that decision for her.
Make that decision. That is bananas. Burners. Before we get into the rest of this story, Nathan, let's take a quick break. I'm going to top off my drink. I'm going to go put on some diamonds and some white diamonds perfume, and we will be right back.
Okay, I have to tell you, I was just looking on eBay where I go for all kinds of things I love, and there it was.
That hologram trading card. One of the rarest, the last one I needed for my set. Shiny like the
designer handbag of my dreams. One of a kind. eBay had it, and now everyone's asking, ooh, where'd you get your
windshield wipers? eBay has all the parts that fit my car. No more annoying, just beautiful.
Whatever you love, find it on eBay. eBay, things people love.
Kroger Delivery has one mission: to deliver the freshest food right to your door. That's why our drivers are pros. Our trucks are refrigerated. And when it comes to low prices, we always deliver. With $20 off your first order of $75 or more, there's no better time to get in on the action. Mission accomplished. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
We're back.
We're back. So, Nathan, let me just tell you, Elizabeth is living her best, happiest life after the birth of Liza, after the recovery from nearly dying. She is just feeling so grateful, so happy to have this beautiful life. She had 3 beautiful children. She had an ex that she was on good terms with, so it's not like her kids from her first marriage were like living fatherless. And now she's got this new beautiful baby. She has a husband that showered her with gifts. They were married on a Saturday, so every Saturday he gave her a gift.
Everything is coming up roses for Elizabeth until it wasn't. And this is when shit goes absolutely wild in Elizabeth's life. Yeah.
In 1958, she has a 7-month-old. Liza's 7 months old. Mike Todd is going on this trip. The Friars Club is giving him an award for being the showman of the year. Elizabeth was supposed to go with him, but she had bronchitis and 102-degree fever. So it kind of feels like, okay, foreshadowing, but maybe fate played a part here.
Maybe.
No, bitch, you are staying home.
Yeah. So Todd came to hug her before he got on his private plane, which he named the Lucky Liz. Irony. He told Elizabeth, "Without you, honey, I'd feel like half a pair of scissors." So cute.
Which I looked up. I was like, is that like a common saying? No, it just seemed... I wish I could have known Mike Todd. He seems like such an interesting guy.
I feel like that's a cute little thing, a quirky, I'm not as sharp without you type of quirky thing.
Half a pair of scissors is just a knife, right?
Okay, Katie, and your logic. And then he told her that he'd call her in a few hours when he would stop in Utah.
Refuel the plane, yeah. And the next day, Elizabeth wakes up and she's like, oh, maybe Mike called while I was sleeping. And she goes to ask the housekeeper, hey, did Mike call? Do we have a message from Mike? No? Wait, why? What? The vibes are off in here. And you know she's a Pisces, so you know she can tell when the vibes are off immediately. She's like, the vibes are off. Why does everybody look so bummed? Why isn't anybody talking to me? What is happening? So where is Mike?
And soon after, Elizabeth's doctor came over and broke the news to her. Mike's plane had gone down. There were no survivors.
Oh, Elizabeth was hysterical.
Can you blame her?
Absolutely
You
not.
just lost your husband in a plane crash.
In a most unexpected way. A plane you were supposed to be on.
Oh, survivor's guilt?
And you have a 7-month-old baby.
Oh my gosh. Boo.
Oh my God. Her doctor was worried because she's already not in good health. 102 fever, that's high. So he's like, you are going to make yourself even sicker. And she's like, I don't fucking care. The doctor was also like, I don't think it's great for your kids to see you like this. Who can we call? Who can we call to come and take them away? They call the couples, the best friend, the Eddie Fisher guy and Debbie Reynolds. Eddie Fisher wasn't in town. They called Debbie Reynolds, being like, can you come over and take the kids away, please?
So she comes over, picks up Elizabeth's 3 kids, and brought them to her house. And her husband, Eddie Fisher, was already in New York. He was supposed to perform at the ceremony where Mike was receiving his award. And Eddie Fisher just adored Mike Todd and was maybe the only person that loved him as much as Elizabeth did. One of Eddie's and Debbie's kids was named Todd. Try saying that 3 times fast.
No, but that shit, he named one of his kids after him. That's how much he loved this guy. It was like a mentor-mentee kind of situation. Now, if you don't know where the story is going with Elizabeth Taylor, Debbie Reynolds, and Eddie Fisher, we really should tell you something, just a little bit of preface on Debbie Reynolds and Eddie Fisher's marriage. So they married young. and they were like America's sweethearts. There's been like a lot of chatter since the 50s if theirs was a relationship that was kind of constructed by the movie studios because their images were so similar. She was this blonde, she was singing, the girl from Singing in the Rain.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
She's this beautiful blonde who very much has like that all-American wholesome image that was so important in the 1950s. She is apple pie personified, okay?
Yes.
And Eddie Fisher was a singer who also did movies, and he had a very similar kind of image. They had actually discussed divorcing a couple of times. They weren't actually like a happily married couple.
Yeah, they had been on and off again for a while. They had just had a baby. They didn't because it would have affected their careers, which...
Their images, to have it to be America's sweetheart couple, divorced in the 50s.
That's not the most romantic way to start your relationship, is to be like, hey, let's not get divorced because everybody doesn't want us to. Ugh.
Yeah.
So keep that all in mind, but let's jump back to Elizabeth.
Our girl is having a bad time. She
is a bad
is
day.
Wrecked. And I mean, yes, yes, of course she's wrecked. She loved Mike Todd so much. At the end of her life, when somebody asked who was the love of your life, she still said Mike Todd.
Yeah.
And she had a lot of other husbands, spoiler alert. And now the world is watching you mourn. In our Facebook group, somebody was like talking about a Queen's podcast game, like drinking game, and it was one of the rules somebody said was like, every time Katie says can you imagine, take a shot. And I was like, I don't say it that much, and I just realized I've started to say can you imagine, and it was like the third time I've said it. I was like, oh shit, I actually do say that quite a lot, don't I? But no, can you, that is such a...
She's trying not to say it.
I'm trying not to say it, but like, this is a situation you and I hopefully are never going to be in.
Yeah.
Like, the world watching you mourn like that.
Shirley MacLaine and Elizabeth were bestest of friends, and
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I didn't know
that. I feel like Shirley MacLaine would be a hoot to be around.
Yes.
Maybe not to be raised by, because apparently her daughter's not happy about it. Anyway, Shirley would later talk about sitting with Elizabeth at her house in the days after Mike's death. She said Elizabeth ended up just sitting on the couch, crying, smoking cigarettes, drinking vodka. And look, if it was me, same.
I imagine if Steve died tomorrow, I imagine you'd be over here and we'd just be smoking weed and drinking vodka.
Yeah.
People don't really smoke cigarettes anymore is the difference, you know?
Yeah, it would not be a good time for you.
It would be the exact same. So, no, is that the healthiest way to cope?
No, and we'll get you through it.
But who are we to judge?
We'll get you through it no matter which way you choose. I don't care.
Okay, talking about Mike Todd's funeral, actually, like, researching this got me so upset because I kept putting myself in her position. It's infuriating. So they decided to have his funeral in Chicago, because that's where he's from originally, and it was a media circus. She later wrote that people brought picnic baskets because they were camping out to see the famous, they were camping out all day to get a good spot to see the famous Elizabeth Taylor mourn, the world's most famous widow. Could you imagine, I said it again, but no. Going to bury a loved one and seeing people making a day of it? How mad would you be?
I would be sick, and I would...
That is so
I would probably, if I was in a car, I'd roll down my window and start screaming at them, and then there would be, like, photos of Nathan's gone wild at the whatever, like... He lost his shit at everybody. It's like, yeah, because y'all are making a spectacle out of this, not me.
I would go full-blown Britney Spears 2007 with the bald head and the umbrella.
I could see you doing that. I don't put it past you. Even today, when trying to learn more about the funeral, almost all you can find, photos. That's it. We struggled to find anything about this service, the people that were there. It was literally just photo after photo after photo. And I'm trying to imagine going to bury a loved one and having to deal with photographers just following you around everywhere.
Stalking you. There's this story of her in her car. The driver can't take off, can't drive away because of the crowds.
Ugh.
Look, did she look beautiful in those pictures?
Probably. She's just beautiful in general. Do we need to watch a beautiful person cry? No. I couldn't imagine being put in the spotlight after suffering trauma like that.
You're trying to bury your husband.
Yeah, you just honestly want to go home and drink vodka and sleep, but everybody's going to talk about it.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, get away from me. Like, I would lose my mind. This is why I like podcasting, is because you don't know what I look like.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be terrible. I would be miserable.
Oh, no. So, wildly enough, this funeral happens. Her husband is the love of her life. The father of her very, very young child is dead in such a dramatic way. But MGM is like looking at their watch and they're like, time is money, Liz. I'm sorry. Like, they were halfway through filming Cat on a Hot Tin Roof and they're like, sorry, babe, you got to get back in the studio. And Elizabeth is like, how? How do you come? And also, it's a Tennessee Williams show.
Not easy.
So it's not something that's going to be, this is an emotionally taxing role anyway. And she's like, you expect me to show up on set and play this really, really difficult character in this state? And they're like, yep, that is exactly.
Yeah, well, Hollywood is where pretty people go and cry and make money off of it.
Yeah.
Like, literally, poor thing. But here's a direct quote from Elizabeth, because this is not a good time. Mike's barely cold in his grave, and all they're worried about is their goddamn movie. Ugh. I sympathize with that. She's literally like, can you give me like a month or two to breathe after this?
Can y'all recast this movie?
After all, she had just seen James Dean die in one of his movies, and now her husband dies before another one. It's like, hey, trauma.
Yes. Oh my God. But it turns out, so Mike, like we said, he was a gambler in both his profession and in actual gambling. So he left Elizabeth with a shit ton of debt.
Oh, I was hoping you were going to say a shitload of money. But she went the other way because he's a gambler. Okay.
He did. The only thing that he really left her with that she would make money off of is one, her ice skating rink. She sold it. We don't know for sure. We don't know for sure that she sold it right after he died, her engagement ring. But when they auctioned off all her possessions in 2011, that ring was not in the collection.
Oh, so somebody's wondering, not wandering around. They know they have her ring. They're just being like super secretive about it.
She probably sold it after this when she realized how much debt she had. The only other thing is she has, if you Google the phrase Todd AO, you'll probably recognize the logo. He had copywritten or patented this type of way that you do widescreen filmography, and she inherited that. So eventually she would earn money off of that.
But at the time, she was not making any money, so she had to get back to work. She would actually say later in life that this was a blessing in disguise. When she was in character, she actually got to escape reality and kind of get an outlet for her grief, which I can relate to, because when you're in theater and you get to play a character, you get to step outside of yourself and not deal with your drama.
It was an avenue for her grief, besides sitting on the couch and drinking vodka and smoking cigarettes. Maggie in Cat in a Hot Tin Roof is a dramatic character. Mm-hmm. So she had an avenue to let out that grief, which, blessing in disguise. Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Over the weeks after Mike's death, she was really having to lean on her best friend, Eddie Fisher. And, well, one thing led to another, and eventually they're having an affair. Fair.
She was leaning on that dick.
Katie, why were you made this way? I love you.
She's leaning on that dick. Debbie Reynolds hears rumors about her leaning on that dick because people were whispering that they are spending a lot of time together. The thing is, though, Debbie Reynolds told Eddie Fisher to go spend time with Elizabeth Taylor. Eddie Fisher was so brokenhearted, and Elizabeth was so brokenhearted that Debbie Reynolds was like, y'all are the only people that understand what y'all are both going through right now. Go spend time with her while she's doing this movie. So she basically was like unknowingly sent her husband into the arms of another woman.
And they bumped butts. Is that what straight people do?
Yeah, you just hit your butts together. And that's how you have sex.
Okay, that's how babies are made. Yay.
And that's how babies are made. So she's hearing rumors. She's hearing
more than rumors. Imagine how she felt, though, whenever she calls over to Elizabeth Taylor's hotel and Eddie Fisher answers the phone.
What she tells people that she says. I don't know if it's true, because I feel like I would make up what I tell people I said in that situation, too. But supposedly, when Eddie answered the phone, she goes, "Darling, if you could roll over in bed and hand the phone to Elizabeth, that would be great." Do people actually think of lines that good in the moment?
No, they don't.
Yeah, I don't know.
Unless they knew that it was happening.
She had time to plan. If he answers the phone, this is what I'm going to say.
Because she knew that something was going on. But after that, Debbie played her shit really smart at this point.
She really did.
She ran to the studio and was like, "Hey, Eddie is leaving me for Elizabeth. How do you want me to play this?" And the studio was like, "Okay, let's get this together. You're going to play the brokenhearted, busy mom, and you're going to be it's going to be a struggle bus, but it's okay because everybody's going to sympathize with you because everybody understands the woe of being a single mother after your man left you for another woman." I mean, come on.
For the most beautiful woman in the world.
Yes, it's Elizabeth Taylor.
Yes.
You know, we can handle her. We'll just make her the...
We're
going to make her the biggest villain ever.
Yes. Debbie Reynolds is the angel that everyone is crying for. And now Elizabeth Taylor is that slut that stole her best friend's man. And I think that's a good time to take a quick break and top off our drinks and then get into some drama. Slut shaming! And we will be right back.
The holidays are here at the Home Depot, so let's get to decorating. Find your perfect tree in our huge assortment of shapes, sizes, and styles. Like the easy-to-assemble Jackson Noble Fir, with pre-lit branches perfect for styling with all your favorite ornaments. Or the Flock Starry Light Fraser Fir, with over 1,900 pre-lit memory wire branches that keep their shape so it's ready right out of the box. Ooh. Find the perfect tree now at the Home Depot.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
We are back.
We're not going to get into the weeds about Elizabeth Taylor and Eddie Fisher and that whole affair because that is a whole nother episode and we're trying to get through part 2. But for a modern reference, if you lived through Brad Pitt, Jennifer Aniston, and the whole Mr. and Mrs. Smith meeting Angelina Jolie drama, this was that on steroids.
Yes. We have so much to discuss, so we're going to have to move on from this drama. Elizabeth Taylor was painted as a whore, as a homewrecker. Eddie was called even worse for breaking the heart of America's sweetheart. In the show notes, and again, I'll put this on Instagram, people were protesting Eddie Fisher's concerts. Like this that I have in the show notes here is Eddie Fisher was headlining a concert in Vegas. And look, they have a picket line.
Yeah.
So that's like, we didn't see people picketing. At least I don't remember people picketing Brad and Angelina's appearances. Like, this was next level media circus.
And Elizabeth really didn't help things out. If she would have been related to somebody in Queen's podcast history, that would be Anne Boleyn, because she had a big sexy mouth.
Sexy mouth. What if Anne Boleyn was a Pisces and we just don't, because we don't know her birthday. What if she was a Pisces and we have big sexy mouths? Because I could never be in the public eye. This big sexy mouth. Oh, Jesus. Oh, Jesus. Oh, her big sexy mouth got her in trouble. Nathan, tell us about this quote.
So Hedda Hopper, who we mentioned in the first episode, huge gossip columnist. Mm-hmm. She had actually helped Elizabeth's career way back in the day.
Right.
But when she reached out to Elizabeth for a quote, Elizabeth said, well, Mike is dead and I'm alive. What am I supposed to do? Sleep alone?
This quote it set the world on fire with scandal because it indicated that she's already having sex with this married man.
Oh,
which,
no.
I mean, yeah.
They were.
But you just have to remember how much more conservative the public was in the late 50s, early 60s. She may as well said, we blow each other in the car on the way to this interview. You know, wildly scandalous thing for her to say to someone that she knew was going to print her words.
The funny thing about Elizabeth Taylor is that when she has sex with someone, that means you're getting married. Like,
gotta marry him.
It's like a lesbian. Like, oh, I'm moving in.
Yep.
And in 1959, Elizabeth took her 4th trip down the aisle, just hours after Eddie's divorce from Debbie. It wasn't even, the ink was still drying.
On the divorce.
Yeah. Almost literally.
These two just did not do each other. They just didn't do themselves favors in the media with her with their quote of what am I supposed to do? Sleep alone. And 2, like with them getting married the same day that his divorce was final. Like, let it sit for a second. But no, funnily enough though, of all her wedding dresses, her dress that she wore when she married Eddie Fisher is my favorite.
Oh, so Katie's a connoisseur.
Yes. Surprise, surprise. I've looked at a lot of pictures of Elizabeth Taylor recently. Elizabeth Taylor, Eddie Fisher wedding dress. Let me pull it up for you. She also converted to Judaism.
I've got it here.
Oh, you've got it? Okay.
It's like not an emerald green, but it's like a forest green.
Yeah.
And she looks like that dark hair with the pale skin and the striking red lip.
My.
Like, it's got this...
And the dress has like a hood on it.
Yeah, she looks like she's a Celtic...
Is that a Judaism thing?
Yeah. It's to cover the crown of your head. Yeah.
Yeah, and because she had converted to Judaism to marry him as well. I love this dress.
Yeah, she looks like she's a forest nymph. Like,
yes, she does.
Like, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
This scandal, there were 3 people involved in this scandal. Elizabeth Taylor, Debbie Reynolds, Eddie Fisher. Elizabeth Taylor and Debbie Reynolds went on to have successful careers.
Mm-hmm.
Eddie Fisher, on the other hand, this ruined his career.
I mean,
he's the one to fault. He's the one to fault.
This, I was about to say, honestly, in culture, we tend to start screaming at the women for being sluts and whores, and it's like, actually, he's the one that made the decision. So let's ruin his career.
Elizabeth Taylor and Debbie Reynolds made up eventually.
Yeah. So that tells you all you need to know.
His career tanked after this scandal.
Elizabeth,
on the other hand,
MGM had her on contract for one more movie. And they were like, okay, we got to capitalize on this. How can we do this? So they cast her as Gloria, a high-dollar escort in a movie called Butterfield 8.
And she was pissed. She's like, you want me to play a sex worker? You want me to play a sex worker?
They're like, well, I mean, you just stole this husband. So she had this image in the public eye already, and they were capitalizing on that.
As Slutty McSlutface, and they're like... And it's also probably a little bit of punishment. For one, her leaving. Like, this is the last movie she's going to make with MGM. And you know what we're going to do? And you just trashed your public image. So we're leaning in, bitch. We are leaning all the way in. Yes, you are going to play a sex worker. She did actually, she was like, one stipulation. You have to give Eddie a part in this movie where he's a nice guy. And so Eddie Fisher's like a secondary character where he's like a really sympathetic character.
What?
I know. They're like, fine. So she puts on a nightgown because back then they couldn't, she was never going to be like completely naked. Yeah. They're going to make you think about her naked as much as they possibly could.
Yeah, MGM was trying to be like, hey, we're going to capitalize off of your image right now. But Elizabeth Taylor did win an Academy Award for this role. So it was a smart move on her and her studio's part.
But she was like, anybody that would listen, she told everybody how pissed off she was that they made her play a sex worker.
Yeah.
But bitch, you got an Oscar. Shut up.
And the time after Butterfield 8 was a huge turning point for Elizabeth. First of all, she's free of MGM. They've been running her life since she was 11 years old, and she's now 29, so freedom.
Every movie studio in the world is like, Elizabeth Taylor is a free agent. I got to get her in this movie. But Elizabeth, she's going to play some hard to get. She's going to play hardball. She is going to say, actually, I'm retiring. I'm not interested in any of your movies. Hard no thank you. Which only makes people want her more and more. And only makes people want to pay her more and more. She's smart. This woman is smart.
Maybe learned it from Mike Todd. But on the flip side of her life, she realizes that she made a big old mistake marrying Eddie Fisher. She would later say that she thought she was in love with Eddie because they talked about Mike Todd so much. So that's what kept their relationship alive.
She felt if they talked about him every day, it kept him alive.
I feel like that's kind of common for people to bond over grief.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Trauma bonding.
But is it necessarily the best foundation for a marriage?
No, it's not.
After a couple of years, Elizabeth was like, oh, no, I don't love this man. And she started taking sleeping pills so that she could limit the time she had to be with him.
Ooh, she was probably already hooked on said sleeping pills.
That's what we call in the medical profession a big yikes. Like
professional opinion.
Professionally speaking, ooh, that's not great.
Yeah, let's pivot from that because it's time to talk about one of Queen's podcast's most favorite topics in the world, Cleopatra.
Coming at ya. Yes.
Fox had been waiting and waiting and waiting for Elizabeth to be out on her own, and she's off of that contract so she could play Cleopatra in this epic film that they were about to make.
And Elizabeth Taylor keeps telling them, no, thank you. Please go away. And the way that Elizabeth Taylor has always told this story, I think is bullshit. I think this is a big old lie. But the way that she tells this story is that they just kept calling. And one day she's in the bathtub and they call. And Eddie Fisher is on the phone being like, Elizabeth, Fox is on the phone again asking about this Cleopatra movie. And the way that Elizabeth tells this story is that she's like, I'm just going to throw the biggest number at them in the world. And this is actually goes down in history called the bathtub deal. And she says, to make them go away, Eddie, tell them I will do their Cleopatra movie for $1 million because it's just the most ridiculous number she could come up with in her head. And then he says, she'll do the movie for $1 million. And they said, you got it. And so it's called The Bathtub Deal. And it is, at this point in history, the largest contract an actor has ever signed.
Yeah, because $1 million back then is way more money nowadays.
That's like $60 million now or something.
Yeah, but cute story. But how true is it?
I don't.
No.
It's not.
No.
I think Elizabeth Taylor was a very calculated businesswoman at this point in her life.
She learned it from Mike Todd.
Yeah.
She was learning how to. I'm sure there were multiple conversations about, I'm not going to get paid that. There were multiple phone calls, and Fox was negotiating a deal with her, but did she just spout out some random number? No. It was a cold, calculated number where she knew, hey, I need to be the highest paid actress in history at this point because I'm coming out of retirement. And it's not just about salary. She didn't just negotiate $1 million for that one movie. She did something that was what we do, or not we. I don't negotiate my actors.
Haven't been in a movie.
I haven't been in a movie. But they negotiate a percentage of the profits from the movie.
The gross profit, not the net profit.
Yes. So if you, because essentially the idea is you're putting butts in the seats. And 10% of this audience is here to see me. So you need to give me 10% of the gross profit.
Over the summer, our friend from the Exploress, Kate, I went on her podcast and we reviewed the Cleopatra movie. I had to pay $10 to rent that movie on Amazon in 2024. So like 60 years after the movie was made or whatever. Her estate is still getting 10% of that. You know?
She's getting $1.
Yeah. Today that's like a producer credit. Back then, that wasn't the done thing. So she made history with this deal on several levels. And it was so fucking smart. She knew what she was fucking worth.
Yeah.
It was unheard of. She was a trailblazer. And I think we can all learn from that. Know what you're fucking worth. Do not take that job if that's not the salary you want. Do not be in that relationship if they're not treating you right. Know your fucking worth. Thank you, Elizabeth Taylor.
Now, from beginning to end, everything about making this movie was drama. First, they decided to shoot the movie in England. One of the very first scenes Elizabeth shoots, she's completely naked, and they're mostly outside. And IDK, if you've been to England or not, but they have real shitty weather, and it's not a great idea.
The weather in England is not conducive for being naked outside.
No.
She on the screen isn't completely naked. She's got like this little blanket in front of her, but she's against the elements, essentially naked, you know?
Yeah, and she catches a cold and then ends up developing pneumonia, and she almost dies.
I mean, actually, she did die.
What?
She was pronounced dead. She had no vital signs for 5 minutes. I mean, 5 minutes to most of our days is like a drop in the bucket, but 5 minutes for no vital signs.
It's a big
Jesus
deal.
Christ. Mm-hmm. Jesus Christ, I'm about to meet you. Yes, like ding dong death, I think we said before on this show. They did an emergency tracheotomy, and she did pull through after 5 minutes of no vital signs, though.
Ooh.
And because this is how news travels, the newspapers went ahead and reported her death, and they printed her eulogy or whatever. And she did an Oprah interview in the 80s where she talks about it, and she goes, "It was the best reviews I ever got."
Ouch.
That's so funny.
She didn't talk about it much, but in the 80s, Elizabeth would claim that she had one of those light at the end of the tunnel experiences. She said she saw Mike Todd and that she wanted to go with him, but she claims he pushed her back and said, "No, your kids need you. We'll see each other soon enough, but your kids can't grow up without a mom."
Go, bitch.
Get out the way. Go, bitch.
Go, bitch. Go back to Earth. Go back to Earth, bitch. We talked about this before hitting record, and we'll link in the show notes to the Oprah interview. And I thought this was really interesting. I feel like we grew up hearing stories about light at the end of the tunnel, blah, 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 blah. And so the story that she tells on Oprah kind of sounds like what you and I, it almost sounds like a trope. But in the 80s, people weren't openly talking about this. You didn't have the internet to Google what near-death experiences sound like. And so it's so interesting. She talks about in this interview with Oprah that she told her doctors, and they were like, yeah, you shouldn't tell people that because you're going to sound crazy. Now, was this a hallucination? Was it real? And does that matter? Because it was real to her. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that's one of those near-death experience things is, are they having it because that's just what they've heard and it's just a psychological thing, or is it a real thing?
Yeah.
Does it really matter? No.
No. In her mind, this really happened.
Yes.
And Mike Todd, even though she was married to someone else, Mike Todd is who she saw telling her, no, you have more to do in this life. And that's kind of beautiful, right?
Mm-hmm. It is.
Yeah.
Anyway, after she recovered, months later, they started filming again, and we don't have time to go into all that drama around
making
that
this movie
filming.
was a clusterfuck.
Yeah, location issues, whole thing. Elizabeth almost caused a strike by bringing her own makeup artist in, and the director was replaced after the movie had already been filmed or started filming. Drama.
There was just drama. But the drama that your mama knows about this show is because she met the guy that played Mark Antony.
Oh.
Welsh actor Richard Burton. And what did you say earlier? Hang on to your tits? Because this chemistry.
Yeah. Hold tight to your tits. It's like the chemistry that happened between Mark Antony and Cleopatra. It was not love at first sight, though. Burton had a reputation. He said that he had slept with every leading lady that he'd ever acted with, except Julie Andrews. Thank you for saving her reputation.
Yes. So Elizabeth rocks onto this set being like, I am not going to be another notch in this guy's bedpost. So she brings that attitude to the set being like, this guy thinks he's so fucking hot. He thinks he's so fucking talented. Oh, let's not let him forget who is the actual star here. Thank you very much.
And Richard came in with a similar attitude. He wanted to bring her down off of her high horse. So he'd be like, oh, this is supposed to be the most beautiful woman in the world? Yeah, right.
At first, people were like, oh no, we are going to have a problem when they get to their scenes together. Because they actually don't have scenes together until 2.5 hours into this 4-hour movie.
Katie's mad about it.
When I rented the movie, I thought, oh, this is a 4-hour movie. This must be like, because they've got a lot of like, director's cut shit afterwards or something. No, it's just a 4-hour long movie. I hated this movie. Let's move on. Except for the costumes. Oh my god, I loved the costumes. Let's move on.
So Elizabeth and Richard are not necessarily getting along at first.
It's not love at first sight.
Until their first kiss. And the director yelled cut, but the couple kept kissing. Supposedly the director said something like, sorry to interrupt, but can y'all stop making out? We need to have lunch.
We need to have lunch. Everyone needs to take a break now. We're shutting off the cameras. Oh, y'all are still kissing? Okay.
Were they married, Katie?
Yes, they were both married, yes.
Did that matter?
Nope. Hard nope. Eddie? Wait, Eddie. Eddie Farsh? I don't know. I don't know him. He doesn't go here. These two started a super hot, steamy affair.
10 years after their relationship started, Elizabeth would say, when you're in love and lust like that, you just gotta grab it with both hands and ride it out in the storm. Ooh,
Okay, girl.
Oh.
This affair actually is credited with starting paparazzi.
Oh.
Because they filmed a lot of it in Rome. And, you know, paparazzi is like an Italian phrase, an Italian word. And the Italian photojournalists were already known for being really aggressive.
So that's why Britney Spears shaved her head, is because of Elizabeth Taylor. Okay.
In a roundabout way, sure.
You heard it here first.
You heard it here first on Queen's Podcast.
The Italian press caught pictures of them in their hotel rooms together, kissing, fighting, and the magazines and newspapers back home were paying a fuckload of money to get those pictures. And thus, the paparazzi was born.
And also, there wasn't, I mean, they had no plausible deniability. Like, they were just like,
we did.
But also, they didn't want to deny it either because they were so obsessed with each other. I honestly feel like Elizabeth Taylor was like just so hungry to be in love again after Mike Todd died, and then she made this huge accident of marrying Eddie Fisher. And this guy was her equal on everything. They could talk about acting together. Because he was like a stage actor. He was like an actor's actor. And like they could talk about tumultuous relationships together. They just were firing on all cylinders together. So they didn't want to deny it. They were like, oh, yep, this happened.
Yeah, they couldn't deny it. They wouldn't deny it. They were the real thing. They're so in love. And they also maybe kind of hated each other.
Yes. It was a tumultuous relationship for sure.
Yeah, Elizabeth liked a guy that challenged her, and the two definitely challenged each other. Remember, she would have those big fights with Mike Todd too, so she's already like borderline toxic relationship at this point. But unlike Mike Todd, Richard Burton didn't worship Elizabeth. He loved her, but treated her like a person and didn't put her on this ridiculous pedestal.
Yeah, so it's different. It's completely different dynamic there. So now there is so much drama with this affair that just like other things, we could make a whole series on like the drama in this affair. So we're going to have to, let's wrap this up. The affair changed the paparazzi. The affair made this movie a huge hit. The country had never been scandalized except for her last scandal. Yeah. So her last scandal was the biggest celebrity scandal America had ever seen. And now this was the next big scandal that America had ever seen.
She is the scandal.
She is the moment.
Though there is one really funny line. Apparently, Eddie Fisher calls Elizabeth one day and Richard answers the phone. And when Eddie says, what are you doing here? Richard supposedly said, what do you think? I'm fucking your wife. Oh, Debbie Reynolds. Debbie Reynolds is loving the karma of this situation.
Because what a perfect parallel that is to when Debbie Reynolds called the hotel room.
Yep.
But what do you think I'm doing? I'm fucking your wife. Because Richard Burton was big dick energy as well. Mm-hmm. Yes. Like we said at the top of the podcast, I promised the Pope was going to make an entrance in this episode, and here we are. The fucking Vatican published a newspaper article condemning Elizabeth Taylor's and Richard Burton's relationship. The Pope actually took time out of his day. Has there ever been a celebrity scandal in our lifetime that the Pope has chimed in on?
Like, rise above the fray, bro. Rise above the fray.
The Pope wrote that Elizabeth Taylor should have her children taken away from her.
Whoa.
And Elizabeth Taylor did not give a single fuck because she's Jewish now. Like, she'd already converted to Judaism. Modern day queens the Pope doesn't usually come into the story.
Anyway, this movie made a ton of money. The affair was amazing PR for the movie. And people were lining up to see the affair on screen, which, remember, meant Elizabeth is making 10% of the gross income of the money coming in.
Yep. It took 2 years, but on March 5th, 1964, Elizabeth was granted a divorce from Eddie, and she wore yellow to her wedding with Richard Burton 10 days later.
And I think this is where we're going to leave Elizabeth for now.
Yes.
Next time, we'll talk about life with and after Richard Burton, philanthropy, and her very, very important work with AIDS, and, of course, husbands and diamonds.
And diamonds! Cheers, bitches!
Cheers!
Do you find it hard to sleep at night? Then the Sleep Cove podcast can help you. Hi, I'm Christopher Fitton, the voice and clinical hypnotherapist behind Sleep Cove. Sleep Cove features sleep hypnosis, meditations, and bedtime stories, all designed to help those of you who struggle at night to achieve a restful and peaceful night's sleep. Search for Sleep Cove on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and see why Sleep Cove helps millions of people sleep deeply all night long.